Board of Trustees. Everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We could have the reading of the mission and vision, please.
The mission statement is that Richmond Community Schools guide students on pathways of learning to a future of limitless possibilities.
The vision statement is Richmond Community Schools, a community nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare students for lives of choice, purpose, and service.
Thank you both. Moving on to celebrations, Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, I ask that our communications coordinator, Mrs. Bridget Hazelbaker, join us this evening to highlight tonight's celebration.
We are going to highlight these three gentlemen here tonight. Just a minute. So I just want to talk a little bit about Civic Hall Performing Arts Center. Civic Hall serves both RCS in the region of East Central Indiana and West Central Ohio as a performance venue. Who here ever danced in Civic Hall or played basketball in Civic Hall when it was a athletic stadium? Anybody? Oh, good. Mr. Moore did too. So now it is now our Performing Arts Center. So a lot of people, when the kids see that, they can't believe it. So housed within Civic Hall are 3 classrooms that are used for band, choir, and orchestra. Approximately 150 programs and rehearsals take place in the auditorium annually. Over half of these are school-related programs. Many thousands of students have had instruction in Civic Hall, and many thousands of patrons have enjoyed performances in the venue. Tonight, I would like to bring forward John Cook, Mike Rogan, and Jeff Templeton to share a little bit more about Civic Hall. Gentlemen.
Thanks for having us here. Big honor to be here. I'm going to talk a little bit about Civic Hall and our upcoming events. I think you should have a brochure and also a little bit of information about our kids shows. The kids shows are a big part of, I think, as far as an aspect educationally that really inspire and touch a lot of kids. In our school corporation and also corporations from around the Wayne County area and also into Ohio, the neighboring counties. The first show is Dr. T. Rex, and that will be in January. Then we also have the second show, which is Professor Lau and his Unbelievable Science Show, and that will be on February 8th. They're both for our students, and I'm happy to say that all of our elementaries have reached out and made arrangements to be at our shows for either the 9:30 show or 12:30 show. And then we also do, Richard talked about all the shows that we do that are student-based. Last night we had our first Richmond Community Schools Orchestra concert. It begins now as far as our beginning of busy season because the students now are learning enough materials to put on performances. So from here until December, we have quite a few performances, as well as the Proudly Presenting series, which occurs, our first show is this Saturday, the Paragon Ragtime Orchestra. Then November 5th, we have the Cleverleys, which is a bluegrass group. It's also a comedian-based shtick. It's pretty impressive. December 3rd, we have All Is Calm, which is historical in nature. We're going to bring in the history students from Richmond High School to be a part of that. We have March 18th, which is the Step Crew, which is Irish dance with some tap dance. And then our final show is Joe Piscopo. You might be aware of Joe Piscopo from the early days of Saturday Night Live. He's an impersonator of Frank Sinatra. Well, it turned into his later in life gig, so he sings with a big band and does all Frank Sinatra charts. So that closes our season. And we couldn't do all those shows without the two guys who are behind me. Mike is our technical director. He's been here since Civic Hall became an auditorium as opposed to a basketball arena. He's a graduate of Richmond High School. Also Jeff Templeton, he's a graduate of Richmond High School. He's at Earlham, but they both are sound and lighting experts. Mike does amazing things that you're all pretty aware of, I'm sure. And Jeff is who helps us out when Mike needs to be in the sound booth doing the lighting, and then Jeff is running sound. And then also for all the graduations at the high school, and also for IU East, and whenever we have Earlham come in, we're called on to do things in Tiernan Center, and these guys pretty much take care of all that technology. So thanks for having us. We're, I'm humbled to be here, and thanks for recognizing us.
I can't really add anything. And I'm certainly out of my element here, being in front of LU, but, yeah, where does almost 30 years go? It doesn't seem like 1993 was all that long ago. And it's been a privilege to move that project to where it is today. And with that, you have to bring in the right people to assist with that project. Those roles. Jeff has been instrumental on the audio, sound side, and
Pardon that pun, instrumental, Templeton
oh, yeah.
music.
Absolutely, yeah. Really, well, a very good musician in his own right, but it's been a privilege, and we'll see where the next 30 years go. But I think we're set up and ready for that next step.
That sounds like a verbal contract for another 30 years.
So Mike, without embarrassing you, what year did you graduate?
75.
Okay. Yeah, I knew that you were a couple years older than me, and you have a younger brother?
2.
Two. One of them was in band?
Yeah, all 3
All
of us.
I remember them. I remember them from that. And the tie into that was, at the same time I was in band with them, I was getting my instruments and everything serviced at Templeton Music. But thank you all for being so, I'm going to say it now, instrumental behind the scenes for these many years, making things work.
I just want to say that I really appreciate the educational series. I love the focus on getting kids into Civic Hall and getting them exposed to some of these. These are great opportunities. I really appreciate how each of our partners, Civic Hall and RSO and Richmond Art Museum, are very intentional about making those educational opportunities happen for our kids, because it really gives another layer of their experience and education. So thank you for doing that.
And I just would like to add the thanks. I know we've asked accommodations on usually pretty short notice, either a special board meeting, and I know you guys, just without complaint, it's set up perfect, and it really means a lot to know, again, a partner, but a facility that we can, if we need to have a meeting there, we can call, and it just gets done, and it gets done to the proper way, and with professionalism and quality, and that means a lot. So thank you all.
I can attest to working with these guys firsthand, and the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, that, everything from helping with stage props to lighting, the sound, when the drama classes and everything was put on plays, the amount of hours and after school hours that these guys put in to work with them, and the way they work with the kids also, not just the instructors. And it's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, and you guys have always been extremely professional, and you guys you can tell you're enthusiastic about it as well. So it's a good vibe there. It works well.
Thanks.
And as I expressed earlier, and as I expressed earlier this week, I definitely apologize for bringing you all, as Mr. Walton mentioned, you all spend so much time behind the scenes, but bring you out to the forefront so that folks indeed can see the ownership, the craft, the quality that you all bring to it, the professionalism, because I know that of what you all have been charged to do for so long and continue to be charged to do, you make it look effortless. And so I know that even earlier this week, we had a service that you all indeed exercised your expertise in magic and made things really come to light. But prior to that, you've been making magic for so long. And so, as Mr. Sliver said, we look forward to the next 30 years working alongside you, and we definitely appreciate you all being here this evening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Kress?
As the apparent historian of the group, I think certainly we want to commend these gentlemen for what they do for the piece that Civic Hall contributes to RCS, but I think we're remiss if anytime we celebrate Civic Hall, we don't also celebrate the Richmond community and the genesis of that facility. It starts with an attorney by the name of Ross Harrington who prepared a will, and for a lady named Lucille Gamp, who had a very interesting background. If you've ever looked at Lucille's, Aaron can relate, and basically took that money. It wasn't clear that it was permissible to be used for the purposes of converting Civic Hall. There was a petition to construe. Judge Ranke found it was appropriate. And that was basically the genesis of Civic Hall Associates that has been the supporting, connecting link to the community. And you will see, as you see every year, periodically or frequently on our donations list, there are people in the community who continue to support Civic Hall Associates, a proudly presenting series. And this is truly, if there is, it's a crown jewel in a crown that represents a combination of community coming together with school corporation to create something that's beneficial to all. And so I think we have to always celebrate that aspect of it.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Moving on to public commentary. All right. I will read. I'll go ahead and read a brief script. The Board of School Trustees recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on corporation matters. The board wants to ensure that the public feels welcome and that the concerns are answered in a timely, efficient manner. The maximum time for individual speakers is 5 minutes per person. The board expects personal decorum and factual information from the speaker. The president reserves the right to interrupt the speaker when a statement is too lengthy, personally directive, abusive, and obscene, or if it interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting. Comments recognizing the work of staff and students are always welcome. However, critical remarks concerning specific school personnel or students are to be made through the complaint process available in policy 8130. School board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting. The public participant will receive a personal follow-up email from the board president within a week. Thank you. Mrs. Claypool.
Marianne Avery.
Right.
Last meeting, a parent requested surprise and delight for teachers and staff. The best surprise and delight would be affordable benefits for all public servants. Tonight we reminisced about the Civic Hall project. My prayer is that someday, sooner than 30 years, we can celebrate health care and good wages for all of our employees. The last time I spoke, Mr. Weber, you sent me an email and you mistook my gratefulness that we were getting out to job sites as good things were happening, and you didn't address any of the other issues that I brought up. So I don't know if any of you have seen the meme that goes around, and it's a dog sitting with a cup of coffee and flames are all around, and the dog saying, "This is fine." And I feel like that is our response to what's happening in applied skills at the high school. Teachers are still getting beat up trying to protect other students from students with challenging behaviors. We're exhausted. We're trying to make sure everyone gets toileted, fed, doesn't choke at lunch. And I got a great things are happening email. Just really disheartening. So unless you can email me with your plan to apply for grants, a campaign to ensure all employees, voices from all of you to the community that says, hey, it's okay, we can say the tax word and not get beat up over it. we need money to function. It's okay for all of you to step up and ask for that. So if you are working toward this, I'd be happy to join with you. If you are not, I will continue to come and be the squeaky wheel.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to consent items. Dr. Ray.
President Weber, trustees, I come before you to ask for approval for consent items 4.01 through 4.06 and the addendum as presented.
Happy to entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent items as presented with the addendum to human resources as presented.
Motion by Aaron Stevens. I'll second. Second by Jeff Schleifer. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to our public hearing. On the script here. All right, we're ready. The purpose of this hearing is to offer the public an opportunity for comments and questions regarding the 2023 through 2025 capital projects plan, the 2023 through 2027 school bus replacement plan, and the 2023 budgets. Start with the presentation by Mrs. Scout.
Good evening. We're gonna get this going. Okay, tonight we'll continue our budget conversation. This will be in a little bit more detail than we had at the last meeting. The last meeting we went over the basics of what the budget looks like and how it's made and built. And tonight we'll just go through more of the details. The first thing that we will go over is the notice to taxpayers. This has been published in the Gateway. That link can be found at the bottom of this page. It is also considered the transparency portal that we utilize for data. So our budget is posted there. The notice to taxpayers is also called the Form 3 for those of you who are budget gurus. And this year we will be publishing a budget, or we have published a budget of $65,759,494. Of that, $2,849,084 is in debt service. That is based on actual payments expected. At the education fund, we are advertising $40,223,320. That is an advertised amount. That will, of course, depend on student accounts. And then the operation fund of $21,987,090. That will also be dependent on other factors that we'll go over throughout this presentation. Our operations max levy, to note, is $9,777,813. So you will see that that max levy is there, and then the tax cap credit estimate is $5,459,880, and I ask that you just pay close attention to that as we move through this presentation. The next piece that we will go over is the education fund. The basic grant is the primary revenue source for this fund, and based on our unverified ADM, that should be verified within the next week or two. We will have 4,339 students. I do expect to lose a few out of that just based on the current information received. And then that will estimate our revenue at $37,413,526 in the education fund. There is some other revenue that assists that, but as you can tell, that will not look like our estimated budget. So we will make that adjustment once we get those totals. And once the budget process is finalized. So the per student funding for the fiscal year 23 is $7,512.08. I will note that this is a budget year for the legislature, so we do not know yet what next year's per student funding will be, but we will be watching that closely as they come into session. So before you tonight are just some quick facts about each fund that we advertise. The education fund is a state-based budget. We do estimate what we think we will need, and then we make adjustments based on the actual cash received. So even though we know that we will not get 40 million, we have to advertise that high, and then we will reduce that budget according to cash actually received. In that fund, over 90% of the fund is salary and benefits for our curricular staff. And then any classroom costs are also included, such as supplies. Debt service, that fund, it has 3 bonds associated with it. We have 2018, 2020, and 2021 bonds. That amount is $2,849,084. That does include textbook reimbursement for a shortfall. So that is something that the state provides to us. It is based on free and reduced funding, and that is also included in that number. The estimate next year is over $215,000. The operations fund will include 6 buses this year. If you were paying attention last meeting, we talked about the change to our bus replacement plan, where we will be purchasing a 2-for-1 with our plan in order to meet needs with drivers a little bit better. So we'll talk about that in just a bit. But it also includes the transportation services, the facilities, and any administrative costs. So that's central office and utilities and insurance. The education fund also includes professional development needs, as well as student services and partnerships. So we have communities in schools, Centerstone, Presence Learning. We have transfer tuition with Ivy Tech and Ivy East for students at our high school. And then we also have the fire and rescue contract for those classrooms over at the high school with the city of Richmond. The operations fund houses capital projects, transportation, and bus replacement needs. We've talked before about the circuit breaker estimate. I do want to note that it is usually high. This year I think it's extremely high because our AV did grow just a bit. And that circuit breaker for this year, the actual amount that we expect to see reduced is $3,083,590. I will say this is a record for us. So that is not a good record, but we are working to try to reduce that with education as much as possible. With our other county units, but we all know that that control does not lie in our hands. So the bus replacement plan, we're going to replace 4 of the what I call big yellow buses, the 72 passenger, and then we are also going to replace 1 72 passenger with 2 smaller yellow buses. You do not have to have the CDL to drive those smaller buses, so we hope that that will expand our ability to get drivers with that. And you do still have to have your gold card, so there are still requirements and testing that has to be done, but it is a little helpful as we seek out drivers. The plan is to continue the contract with student transit. That is what has been budgeted, as well as facility updates. Those updates include routine maintenance, which is your carpet, paint, and just general maintenance needs, and continue the ESSER projects. That is outside the capital projects. However, we have found a number of those projects are coming in higher than expected, so we are using operations funds to help offset those costs when necessary. The current projects planned between ESSER and operations is roofing updates at Charles, Fairview, and the high school. Primarily at Fairview and the high school, we do have tower work to be done. A note on the tower, I did receive word that we were turned down for the OCRA grant. So they have asked us to apply again, but this round we were not approved. So that's just a note
And by tower, are you talking about the smokestack?
No,
As
no.
well as?
No,
or
the smokestack doesn't qualify, we're talking about the tower.
Just the tower?
budget.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
The smokestack would be a part of that, but
Mhm.
I'm including that in that project
Okay.
since it's all facade.
Thank you.
Boiler and chiller updates throughout our elementaries, and then playground updates. We plan to do a little painting over at Fairview and updating that area a little bit. Corridor walls and flooring at RHS. This is something we need to get on really soon, if I might put a plug in there, because we do need to get some bids out to be done. And then HVAC improvements at Dennis and RHS are kind of the big pieces that we'll see throughout next year. And we will update the mechanisms in the windows at RHS so that they are just in better working order. And that will happen next summer as well. So the budget calendar, tonight we are holding the public hearing for our budgets, our capital projects plan, and our bus replacement plan. On October the 12th, we will adopt the 2023 budget and approve all the budget forms associated with that, as well as pass the resolutions. Then there are a couple of deadlines that are just there for your information. There are some DLGF deadlines that we just have to be aware of and make sure that we meet. And then the last day for the Department of Local Government Finance to approve budgets is December 30th. They will provide us with a 1782 prior to that, and that notice will be where we get our baseline for our rates and levies. And then we will move into 2023. So just a couple of notes on that Form 3 and some things to expect as we work through the remainder of this process. The estimated versus actual is super important to understand. You have to advertise everything high. You have to advertise your rates, you have to advertise your levies, everything you have to ask for is high because it's gonna get cut. So our advertised rate, just as an example for last year, for debt service was 1.202 and operations was 1.12. We received rates of a little under 19 cents in debt service and operations at 64 cents. We do receive our max levy in operations, and so that is something that we watch very carefully. So then the levy versus actual collections. So when we get that 1782, and I do apologize for the spacing, it looked really good on my computer. It does not look really good on this. So debt service, our levy last year was requested and received at this amount, $2,768,300 and, oh, I'm sorry, no. Levy was $2,768,345. And then we collected $2,629,000. I'm gonna have to go back to this and go back to the old school way of doing it because my deal is too small. There we go. Sorry about that. And then the operations fund, that's the one that we have to watch really carefully because we can only spend what we collect. So we get a levy of $9,311,044. The estimated projections for collection are $6,015,000. So we are going to hit that $3 million circuit breaker. There are some other taxing funds that assist with that difference. However, we are going to be super close to that 3 million mark. Based on the abstract at the auditor's office, I would expect we're probably going to hit 2.8 million. So we'll wait and see what December brings, but that is something that as we budget, we have to be aware of. One thing that you'll know as a board, you get cash flow each month, and that's really where we track our spending. So we base our actual budgets on the money that we actually will receive. So even though we are advertising really high and hoping for those collections, we know we won't get those due to circuit breakers. So That's where that cash flow is super important. And to the members of our public, we do know that we do not spend any more than what we have coming in, especially in these funds. So those are monitored on a weekly basis, if not daily. So any questions from anyone? Anything that you have that you would like clarified, or things that you would like to know as we wrap up the hearing?
Is that question also for the public? Yes.
Sorry about
Is the question for the public as well?
that. Oh, yes, it's a public hearing, so yes.
So, yeah.
Or publics?
Well, I just wanted to make sure that they knew.
Did anyone have any questions? You're allowed to speak freely, you don't have to sign up.
Yeah. It's one of those rare times when you can do that.
Call
Okay.
it out.
I'll ask a question.
Yeah.
You want me to come up there or just yell?
You can just do it from there.
Okay. With the contract with the bus company, I know a lot of parents are really frustrated with how bus service has been, and we do understand like shortfalls and things like that. So are we just redoing that contract, or are there like some stipulations listed in that? What are some of the details in
Yeah,
there?
there are always stipulations. The one thing that I will tell you is this is a nationwide problem, and it's not a Richmond Community Schools problem. What I will also say is, keeping up with the news around the state, we are in a much better position than a lot of schools, so that's not saying it's good, but we are in a better position. The one thing that we know is we have to change some things in the contract in order to make the service better, because we aren't competitive right now. And so, we will be working on that, very soon, so that we can get drivers in that stay. We are losing a lot of drivers to other areas because of the pay, and, we have to modify the contract in order to get that fixed.
I would also add that it's not just about drivers and not having drivers, it's about communication, lack of communication, it's about the bus garage not being open after a certain time, so parents don't know where their kids are, they're calling the bus garage, no one's answering. So I think those are some of the things that parents would maybe like to see in that contract, that somebody has to answer the phone to a certain time, that kind of stuff. That's
So,
just my-
yeah, I will say we're working on that. We actually are working on, some changes for second semester that we're gonna pilot out, that are even better than that. So, it's in the works, we're just waiting on it to get here, and so it's a logistical issue at the moment. But I can guarantee you we are working on that, and there will be a solution as soon as it gets here.
I think it would be great for parents to know that it's been recognized as an issue and that there is some progress towards the solution.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, board or?
But I think it's important for her to understand as well, though, the Sodrel is a separate contract outside of the budget. The budget just talks about what the contract form is, so they're really two different. Not that we don't need to address those, but it's not done during the budget part of it.
All right.
Then I will recommend that we can close the public hearing at this time.
We could have someone.
I move to close the public hearing.
Read the motion and.
I would like to move that the board, well, that's not the motion though. That's the bottom. Is that what you're talking about?
So we have to close the public hearing on each section, but we
Okay.
can do it in one motion.
Okay.
Just read that and it does it all.
That's what I thought. I'm happy to read it. It just doesn't
go.
seem, I would like to move that the board president entertain comments and questions on the proposed 23 to 25 capital projects fund plan, the proposed 23 to 27 school bus replacement plan, the proposed 2023 budgets, and that the board president close the public hearing on the 2023 to 2025 capital projects fund, 2022 to 26 bus replacement plan, and the proposed 2023 budgets as presented.
I will second.
Thank you, Mr. Maury,
I'll withdraw my motion.
All right.
Mr. Walton, and
And Copeland.
Mr. Stevens.
It was more of a gesture.
So we have a motion by Keith Morey, a second by Brad Walton, and a withdrawal from Aaron Stevens. Are there any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0 and the hearing is closed. Moving on to action items, Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, I ask that Mrs. Scout rejoin us for action items 6.01 and 6.02. Mrs. Scout?
Okay, tonight before you are $5,938.50 in donations. We'd like to say thank you to our public for that. We received donations from Stephanie Stout to the RHS construction class. The Wayne County Foundation donated to Fairview Star and Vale for On My Way to Pre-K. The El Bronco Mexican Restaurant and Bar donated to the high school Bleacher Creatures, as did KVM Auto and Trailer Sales. Chris and Barbara Beeson and Patty Neal donated to the Civic Hall Performing Arts Center Proudly Presenting Series. And then Gail Bratton, Connie Miller, Janice Mora, Marian Stoley, and Christy Thacker all donated to George Washington Socks books to Mrs. Wise's class at Hibbard. And you will see a few of our former RCS people on that list. So a big thank you tonight to them, and it's my recommendation that you accept the donations.
Thank you.
I move that we accept action item 6.03, the donations as presented.
Motion by Kristen Brunton,
I'll second.
second by Keith Morey. Any questions or comments?
Just a correction, it was 6.01 and 6.03. I think so.
What he said.
And we got to.
Well, just so the minutes reflect.
Appreciate that.
I think it's always great to see these donations, especially, I know the Bleacher Creatures, we see them, I see pictures of them and activities they're doing at the games to build the school spirit. It's just wonderful to see so many RCS people also donating back. So thank you.
All right, hearing no additional comments, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Mrs. Scout.
Okay, before you tonight, there are 5 change orders. We have change order 1, 2, 3, and 4 with J.G. Bowers Inc. on the RHS Honors Hall restroom. And I might note they started putting up tile this week, and it looks really good. So it'll be exciting to have that complete. And then we have change order number 11 with Carroll Electric, and that is on the RHS Mechanical Modernization Project. That change order tonight is $2,523.38. So it's my recommendation tonight that we approve the 5 change orders as they have been presented.
Thank you.
I move to approve the 5 change orders as presented.
Motion by Aaron Stevens,
Second.
second by Kristen Brunton. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to item 6.03, Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, it is recommended that the Board of School Trustees accepts the overnight field trip request for Richmond High School as presented. Business Professionals of America state qualifiers will be attending the state competition March 12th to the 14th of 2023 in Indianapolis, Indiana. In addition, students who place at the state level will have the opportunity to compete at the national level April 26th through April 30th in Anaheim, California. We definitely appreciate your consideration and ask for approval as presented. For item 6.03, overnight field trip.
I move that we approve the overnight field trip, 6.03.
Motion by Keith Morey, second by Jeff Schleifer. I will just add that one of our leaders completed it. I'd give it to Keith.
Yeah, good.
Became I don't know how is it?
Iron Woman.
An Iron Woman this past weekend. It's 140.3 miles. 6.6 miles. Swim back run. So Mrs. Selm, tremendous. What was her time?
I don't know her time.
It was dark out, I believe.
Yeah.
She was in
Put a long day in. Yeah.
She was in Chattanooga, and a tremendous effort, and that's the kind of person she is. I think she brings that same tenacity and desire for excellence to her BPA students, and so
Hopefully she's walking straight. It's a long day.
I'm surprised she was able to stand up.
Yeah.
Just walk.
But I did see a photograph of her
Yep.
crossing the finish
Crossing the line.
line. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to item 6.04, Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, it is recommended that the Board of School Trustees accept the Student Success Climate Assessment from Dr. Minji Parker, Richmond Schools. As presented, the Richmond Education Association was awarded an Indiana State Teacher Association Foundation Educator Learning Grant during the 21-22 school year. As a result, ISTA and our Richmond Education Association formed a coalition focused on racial equity. Members of the REA coalition include teachers as well as members of ISTA and community members from around the city. Last year, trainings were held for administrators and a core team of teacher leaders on implicit bias and microaggressions. One of our strategic goals is to develop policies that enhance equity and diversity. RCS has an established relationship with Dr. Minji Parker, who would like to partner more closely with us here in RCS to facilitate district-wide conversations around equity. Dr. Parker has an earned doctorate in criminal justice from Michigan State University and is a tenured professor at Indiana University. The scope of the work includes disciplinary decision assessment, student and staff climate surveys, implicit bias in education environment training, and implicit bias critical issues assessment, as well as trainings in and around interventions. These trainings will be for administrators, coalition members, and teacher leaders. This training will be paid for using Title II grant funds that were required to match on behalf of the district to the initial Indiana State Teacher Association grant that was awarded during the 21-22 school year. And we come before you appreciative of the consideration and ask for approval as presented.
Thank you.
I move we approve action item 6.04, the Student Success Climate Assessment.
Motion by Kristen Brunton,
One second.
second by Keith Maury. Following that lengthy description, I would expect nothing less, Dr. Wright. Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, just question, so Dr. Parker, how did we decide on this particular, route?
Dr. Minji Parker has indeed worked with our corporation as well as other corporations in the past, institutions of higher academia. I believe he also has worked with members from the Richmond Education Association Equity Coalition, I believe is the proper way to pronounce. And he has been an authority when it comes to data mining and really getting to the, at least from a data standpoint, he is a specialist when it comes to activity gain, involvement throughout and within communities. He also has, as I understand it, extensive work with equity, diversity, and
He has also worked with Wayne County Probation, and they've been able to do a lot of good work using his expertise in low rates of juvenile arrests and those around those sorts of things as well.
How does as I was looking, is there a report that is generated from this or a summary that is reported back to the board?
Yeah.
Is that how this works?
If you click on that, if you click on the link, it's page 10 and 11, there's a timeline.
I must have missed that.
Training schedule. It's part of the proposal, but yeah. Looks like there will be a, January 6th, there will be a panel, 2023, and then there's a final report and debriefing, scheduled for May 19th, but I'm guessing those are not hard and fast, but projected times.
Okay. So the report comes back to us.
final report and debriefing on that.
There indeed will be a presentation to the board as to Dr. Parker's findings, as well as a summation of the entire experience. Once all of the trainings have indeed been administered, and we get down the road, we indeed will be coming back before the board just to share our findings, and more importantly, to your point, Mr. Slifer, Dr. Parker will be making recommendations, as he often does with such commission work.
Well, that's what I'm kind of curious of, is if he's gonna data mine and collect information and talk to different parties, how can the training be, I guess I'd be interested in. It seems like to me there should be some kind of a findings or a report or a direction before a training starts.
And I guess this ties in with the educational working group that met yesterday with the Racial Equity Inclusion Coalition, and they have worked previously with him, and this seems like that continues that work from. And I just said on the meeting yesterday, I'm not a normal participant in the education working group, but this work seems to follow up that work that has been done, if I'm not mistaken.
No, you go ahead. Okay, well, I was gonna say, Mrs. Sonsini has worked with Dr. Parker, and that's something she specifically asked, do the surveys come first? But he kind of explained that they do not, that he does have that background knowledge, and he wants the surveys to come after.
In a report, I would be very interested in him pinpointing, or there be pinpointed in regards to how it or any activity has diminished juvenile arrest or juvenile misbehavior in our community, because from my perspective, the front seat of my car, I'm not seeing a decrease. I'm seeing an increase. And so if this has been going on, I would like some verifiable stats or some information on how this participation has led to a decrease in criminal activity amongst people under the age of 18. I'm not seeing it.
And to clarify with the work that he's of what's before you this evening, as far as this particular work that Dr. Parker is being commissioned for, is speaking more or less to the cultural competency, the equity and inclusion, as far as the
I just know that he has worked with probation. I don't have any actual, I just know he has worked with them, and that probation has found his input useful in proceeding and how they're working with folks that are already with them.
And indeed, I apologize to interject, but to piggyback on what Mr. Moore is referencing, the Wayne County Probation Department, I believe, will be able to provide you with such data that you just.
That's good, because if you ask someone in my position right now, we're not seeing the best results at this point.
I mean, from what I understand, I don't know that would be a direct correlate. I mean, this is a pretty long-term type process of, the trainings where you start, I think what I learned yesterday was the implicit bias training is kind of the low-hanging fruit, if you will. That's where you start, and these are things that could have a decade to have fruition. So as far as instant or reducing what you see on the street, I'm not sure this is set up to address that initially. Long term, I think yes. Short term, or have some impact.
And yet, to your point, Mr. Weber, Dr. Parker has several different specialties, working with juvenile, again, gang affiliates, and again, having that specialty. But with what this work is proposing is speaking directly to equity, inclusion, and diversity. Not even so much looking to, hopefully it has a profound effect and a positive effect on juvenile behaviors. As far as from a juvenile justice standpoint, that's more the work he does with Wayne County Probation Department and that other specialty that he has within his background. But for what it is that he's being commissioned for this work, This is, to Mr. Weber and Mr. Slifer's point, this is an extension of a collaboration between the Indiana State Teachers Association, Richmond Education Association, and the work that they had started some time ago. I know when I came in as school superintendent, the work had already begun, and the implicit bias training for faculty, staff, administration occurred last fall. What I understand is that there was a agreement that Richmond Community Schools would partner with Richmond Education Association to carry on the work in this form, in this fashion. But this was, as we found even last night, to be the initiative of one of our classroom educators who felt that it was important to move the dial on diversity per se.
And there are, in that schedule, it outlines pre and post
Well, and
tests, yeah.
as I look at the scope of the work, it's facilitate a student's assess climate assessment, which includes the data analysis, training. I guess I'm trying to grasp that. I guess anytime I hear the form of assessment, you have to know where you're at until you provide your training. So I would think that the assessment would be completed prior to the training. It sounds like.
There's pre-test and post-test, yeah. And I believe, it looks like they've done some of the pre-test stuff already.
Right,
I
that's
mean,
what,
it was presented yesterday.
Yes, some information was presented yesterday.
So like, for
based
instance,
on some data they've gathered.
I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
we keep track on, I mean, we need to make sure that we're all in agreement with what's being trained.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for explaining that, and in your summary, I appreciate that you pointed out that it is part of our strategic plan. It says promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. RCS will develop policies that advance DEI, which includes eliminating implicit biases and teaching culturally relevant pedagogy. And from what I'm seeing of what's being proposed, it's in line with what we've tasked central office to find, so thank you.
And maybe we could get that report we saw yesterday sent out to the board. I don't think we have, either that was we got a lot of hard copies, but I don't think we got that hard copy. Because I know one piece was the expulsions, and you know, while it was broken out via race without, you know, explanation, I mean, and so it just gives you, I mean, that's where you start. You look at those type of things, and I think this is the next step to try to dig in deeper for why those pieces. So,
I'll clarify. I'm not denying the effort. I'm not denying the effort. I just, maybe it's the world that I live in. I'm looking for results for a safer community, you know, more student success that leads to a safer community, an accepting community amongst people between the ages of 15 and 21, you know, as a result of this. I just, you know, I guess maybe I'm impatient in the climate that we live in and wanting to see results now instead of something that may occur, you know, down the road. And if this is the onus for the beginning, I'm okay with that. I just needed to clarify that, you know, one side of me is here and the other side is appreciating, as even Nicole, you brought out, you know, some of our goals, you know, as expressed, so.
all right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to item 6.05, the 2022-2023 school calendar. Dr. Ray.
President Weber, trustees, I ask that Mrs. Jamie Bolzer, our Director of Human Resources, join us for action item 6.05 and 6.06. Mrs. Bolzer.
Evening, thank you. It is recommended that the Board of School Trustees accepts the revised changes to the 2022-2023 RCS calendar. The Richmond Police Department and the State Fraternal Order of Police respectfully requested that Richmond Community Schools serve as the funeral site for fallen officer Sierra Burton this past Monday, September 26th at Richmond High School in the Tiernan Center. As a result, RCS conducted an e-learning day district-wide for all students. Additionally, the recent revision to the RCS 2022-2023 calendar increased the teacher work days to 187. We need to decrease the number of days of teacher work days back to 186. Eliminating the additional day of parent-teacher conference on February 27th, 2022 will solve this issue. So it is recommended that the board accepts the revised changes as presented.
Thank you.
I will motion that we approve 6.05, revision to the 2022-2023 calendar as presented.
I'll
Motion
second
by
it.
Brad Walton, second by Nicole Stoltz. Any questions or comments?
So essentially, we just took away the day that we would have a parent-teacher conferences in the spring.
So there is no parent-teacher conference in the spring. Is that right?
That's correct.
And REA is okay with this. I would like to just take a moment right now, because this is at hand, and the reason it was done was on behalf of the honoring of Officer Sierra Burton. I just have to say, on behalf of the Richmond Police Department, and I just say this from the men and women, the husbands, wives, and families of officers there, we want to really extend our appreciation to Richmond Community Schools, the board, for what I hope will take place, for the administration, for the teachers and the families and the students, for allowing us to use the facility in a very, very dignified manner 2 days ago, and something that is going to take a long time, if ever, in our lives and our hearts to ever, come to grips with. And we really appreciate it, but the facility was impeccable. As the gentleman stood before us earlier, we could not have asked for, and we heard this from officers from Connecticut to Oregon to Texas who said that, this location, this facility went above and beyond what would have been expected for such a dignified honoring of Officer Burton's life. And so all I can say is, from the bottom of our hearts representing them, we say thank you very much, and on behalf of her family as well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Schleifer.
Is this, we reduced it to 187, is that because on an e-learning day, it classifies as 2 work days?
That is correct.
Do you have anything else?
Well, without any disrespect to the teaching staff, I really think parent-teacher conferences are important. And I really felt like it was important that we represent the fallen officer as well. But it's just when we offer an e-learning day and we have to provide our staff 2 paid days for an e-learning day, I think that's something that we really need to look at in the future. So.
And if I may, it's in part because it's the e-learning day, that in addition to the parent-teacher conferences, and the preparation that goes into the e-learning portion of it. So that is why I think historically it has been that second paid day instead of another non-education related day. That's, I think, how historically why we handle it that way, just which I'm sure you noted.
Well, I think it goes deeper than that. I mean, an e-learning day is new from a state level. So the mistake was probably made 3 or 4 years ago from the state. And it's one of those things that in the beginning we started it and we have failed just to correct it as time has went along. My wife was a teacher. I know she worked 14 hours a day. That has nothing to do with it. But I just think this is something that we somehow need to add to our list, I think, to correct. Just like we need to, know, we have people telling us that we need to offer health insurance to all of our employees. We have middle group paid teachers that would like their pay increased because they were abused. I mean, this is one of those items that goes into that pot that we really need to take a look at. Because every time we have an e-learning day, we have to adjust our schedule for teaching our kids and pay the staff 2 days. So, again, no disrespect for any party, but I think this is something we need to address.
And I know that Assistant Superintendent Mrs. Sonsini has began the collaboration of the calendar committee to go ahead and begin that work early so that we can consider all of those recommendations.
I was going to add, the calendar has been an issue for at least, I'd say, 3 years now. And so the things I think of, you know, we made the effort to move graduation up. I think that could be looked at. We have no inclement weather days. I think that's important to look at. How the e-learning days, and so I would challenge the administration and central office to really, you know, invest the time, get the calendar as right as it can be, and let's stop talking about the calendar every couple of meetings, because it is just
got the fireworks go off.
It is not. It doesn't need to be this hard, and I know it's super complicated, and I know there's lots of pieces. But let's decide what are our have-tos and are maybe some things that are want-tos, and kind of flesh out a calendar that works for everybody, that's consistent, that people can plan and move forward. And I would really appreciate that, because it's been a challenge. And I think the fall break, and I know we're not taking, but I think that has created, ever since fall break was established, kind of collapsing that fall schedule has made the spring schedule then suffer. And so how that balances out, I know you guys will come up with a great solution.
But I think your point should be well taken. And the calendar is so stringent that it doesn't allow for modifications. So
That is true, and I will say that is something that we all collectively concur with, is your view on that.
I think the other thing that's important to note is, I think times have changed. I can tell you, when I was at Dennis, middle school parents, very few middle school parents attended parent-teacher conferences. It just, they don't come. And by times have changed, I mean, if I want to, if I have a student, I can get an alert every time they're tardy to a class. I can get an alert. I can set that up. So I think.
You mean as a parent?
Yeah. As a parent, if I want to set it up that way. So I think what we can strive for, maybe instead of holding, I don't know that it's, I think for elementary parents, parent-teacher conferences are good. I think they become less utilized. I don't want to say that they're not valuable, but they become less utilized as age up. So maybe what we can do is, and we'll use this moment to plug the safari night. So if we can come up with plans like our safari night, where we have a bank of laptops to train parents how to use the PowerSchool app, how to load that on your phone, how to navigate those things so that they can be more involved. I can check that. I can have a parent-teacher conference every night, because I can look at my grades and go and use those, which is what we want. That's what we want. So I think, but it's constantly changing, and to the chagrin of many, and all the emails that we get all the time that such and such is down. It's the nature of the beast. But I think if we can get more proactive at teaching the people who utilize it how to utilize it better, we don't have to pay teachers to sit in the school for a day and not do what we need them to do, while parents who are busy don't come anyway.
And that was also echoed during a meaningful discussion last week with our association, is the fact that secondary educators, and again, as a former principal classroom educator, indeed the traditional parent-teacher conference has not had the same type of effect as past practice. And at the same time, you're not really going to truly capture much in a 10-minute snapshot outside of meat and potato type issues, for lack of better words. But to Mr. Moore's point, that is something that as we move forward with our calendar committee, there are a handful of issues that we're going to look to tackle and address. As Mr. Weber referenced, this is something that goes back a ways with regard to some of the challenges, and Mr. Schleifer, absolutely, sir, there are some limitations to how creative we can get with the calendar, but we indeed are taking into consideration everything that for a few years now has been a conversation. Put it in motion.
All right. Anything else on calendar? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to item 6.06. Mrs. Bolton.
Thank you, President Weber. I am seeking ratification on a memorandum of understanding to the 2021 through 2023 master contract. The amendment addresses newly discovered information to avoid potential conflicts in compensation amounts between similar sports. The following stipend amounts are being amended. You have basketball varsity assistant to $4,495, basketball reserve assistant $4,495, basketball freshman assistant $3,285. Those are girls' compensation amounts, and that is to make it the same as the boys' compensation amount. And then also adding intermediate softball at a stipend of $1,000, and that is to be consistent with the intermediate baseball stipend that is presented within the contract. The compensation addendum shall become effective beginning with the 2022-2023 school year and will not be retroactive to the 2021-2022 school year. This has been properly discussed with the association. Mr. Cross has reviewed the final draft of the MOU. It has also been sent for compliance review to the Indiana Education Employment Relations Board. So it is recommended to approve the 2021-2023 MOU as presented.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion to accept.
I'll second that.
Motion by Jeff Schleifer, motion by Brad Walton, second by Brad Walton. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Mr. Schleifer, if you can carry us on policy review, I need to step out a moment. Sir, do that. I gotta make sure everybody can hear me now. All right, we're ready for policy review. I would at this point entertain a motion.
I will motion that we approve 7.01, policy 4531, student assistant programs. And then I also, 7.02, policy 4602, discipline procedures for students with disabilities.
I'll second.
Both of those the second reading.
This is,
No,
this would be approved,
This is
yes.
newly updated.
This would be
and
approved, yes.
All right, I've received a motion from Brad and a second from Nicole to move policy 4531 and 4602 to second reading and approval.
This is, yeah,
This is approval.
this is the
Any,
approval.
For approval.
Yeah.
Any comments or questions?
It's a lot. It's a whole lot. Both of those are a lot.
It is a lot. All those in favor of moving the motion forward? looking at this and he's
It's
got
aye.
each person, remember, he's got each person listed here that I'm supposed to check off, so. Hey, I do.
All those in favor say aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passed 7-0,
6-0.
or 6-0, I'm sorry. Well, I'd have to do a roll call since John is not, do I have to do a roll call?
No, just John is not present for the vote.
You're doing great, keep going.
We got
All
you,
right,
Jeff.
now
We
we're
got
ready
you.
to move.
Okay, I would also like to make a motion that we move 7.03.
They fired me, John.
Ron's walking out.
It's a revolt.
Well, I'm sitting here and thinking, okay, I gotta
I
check
got
this
you,
person's name. But no, I don't have to, we're not remote.
I will make a motion that we move 7.03 policy 2420. I'm sorry, 2520, maintenance and fees of instructional materials and equipment, and 7.04, policy 4511, dress and grooming, to second reading.
Motion by Brad Walton,
Second?
second by Aaron Stevens. Any questions or comments?
So smooth.
Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Didn't that have a?
Oh, I'd have been better off not to even receive that. I'm sitting there looking at it, like, oh, I got all these boxes I gotta check.
Sorry. I appreciate the moment though.
John, don't ever leave us again.
We know who
Just
president's
kidding,
gonna be
just
next
kidding.
year.
You guys remember that scene from Hoosiers when he's like, whatever you do, don't get kicked out? That just happened.
Yeah.
Adding a little humor to the board meeting.
All right, moving on to.
Jocularity.
Yes, sir.
I just said jocularity.
Moving on to item 8, board reports and discussion. Starting with 8.01, educational planning working group. Kristen and Keith.
We met Monday.
Yesterday.
We met yesterday with the Richmond Education Association and the Indiana State Teachers Association, which was great, because I think that's part of our working group idea, is to bring groups in when it's relevant to what we're talking about. And I know that next month we're gonna be talking about STEAM, but this month we were talking about Dr. Parker and the Student Success Climate Assessment, which we discussed and approved. We got to have some introductions to community members that came. It was kind of a full house.
It was and it was what is it, Equity Coalition?
Equity Coalition, Richmond Education Association Equity Coalition.
Coalition, yeah, thank you.
And we got to hear more about, I guess, Dr. Parker's assessment coming up, and we had an equity policy presentation with some future discussions about moving forward in that path. So I know that trainings are coming up right away in just a couple weeks with this, with Dr. Parker. And from there, I think at our October 24th meeting, we'll kind of discuss some more with the policy and Dr. Parker, and also the STEAM and HIPAA project.
Yeah, and I will say, a lot of that conversation, we kind of came back around to conversations we've been having for a number of years about how we can work to recruit a more diverse workforce, a workforce that is more representative of the students that we serve. And I think I was encouraged to hear from folks in that coalition who may have some ideas that we haven't gotten yet, and may be able to share some other thoughts on how can we recruit a diverse group of people from a very limited pool of diverse people in general. So how can we work with community partners, City of Richmond, things like that, to highlight what we have to offer.
Well, the recruitment piece was also, I mean, how do we become an employer of choice for all employees? And that I know we have work to do, but I think as we continue to do better, get better, all those pieces can fall in place. Anything Anything else? All right, 8.02 Building and Grounds. Brad and Jeff McCall.
Jeff, you wanna take this? You kinda took control of the meeting. And not in a bad way, but I mean,
It
you,
was a lot smoother than that meeting.
well, you laid out kind of a template, kind of for
One of
the future, so.
One of the goals that we have for the group is the past year we've been so reactionary. Everything has been kind of, I felt like we've been behind. So we have started using all that hard work that Karen comes up with for the budget. We grabbed a piece of that what we approved tonight. And I want to work so we can set an agenda for the whole next year. We know ahead of time, well ahead of time of the projects that's going to take place. So as the group, we were looking at, okay, and I haven't gotten the notes out yet and stuff, but I will. But things like, what are the topics or the subjects that we need to add? You know, recycling and sustaining, or there's many other projects, solar fields, you know, things that we want to look at. And then there's a section of it that I want to look at and concentrate on the 3-year budget, the capital budget, their facilities plans, and then the 10-year, and have a discussion that really, when we approve the budget, the items that's in this next year, they should be in full planning. I mean, we shouldn't really be discussing those because we've already approved those. So I want to get those subjects out ahead of time so we're not so reactionary and can be more efficient. The other part of that was that we had a little field trip over to the high school with John and Glenn because flooring at the high school, which it was kind of interesting that Karen put a plug in tonight because during that field trip, we realized after talking with John and Glenn that we really need to be talking about what we're going to do on the flooring at the high school, along with what's not in the bid, you know, the corridor painting and taking some, you know, sprucing it up, that kind of stuff. So what we did is we went over to the high school to take a look at the floor finish on the 3rd floor, which we approved. And so we could see what that looked like and talk about, you know, about what we're going to do next. And John made sure that within the next month, we really need to be getting together and deciding on what we're going to do with the flooring over at the high school. So it was good. I like the idea. I like the direction, and I think everybody else kind of liked the direction. So, and it'll be nice to know that, or it'll be nice that we have to have an emergency meeting in 48 hours because we have to approve something because our back up against the wall. I'd like to stay away from that. But I need to set some time up with Karen because there's a financial piece of that I think that we need to bring in. I think we need to develop more of a template for the finances so we have a better idea. I've been so buried, I haven't had an opportunity to call Karen and set up. I think she's been kind of buried as well because we got an email from her at 12:30 in the morning, so, which I haven't even read yet because I've been so buried.
And she's drinking an energy drink.
But anyway, that was the crux to the meeting. Did you guys have anything you want to add?
That was basically it.
Well, just like you said, it came into light. Some of the things we hadn't talked about yet was updating some of the lighting on the 3rd floor in the hallways, facelifting paint, the main floor of the high school. There's from basically 4 corners to the steps that go up to the career center. There's a hard ceiling instead of drop ceiling that we probably need to look at removing so that we have room to run some of the infrastructure and cabling and all that through there.
If we don't drop the hard ceiling, we have no access to the addition.
Right. So stuff we hadn't really talked about yet, and so got our heads around it a little bit. It was a good meeting, good field trip. Yeah.
I might make a request, and I think this is good for all the working groups because there is something we need to really think through. I mean, you guys all know I'm a process person. We have to make sure that things can flow appropriately between everyone. And I do see that there is a gap in that right now with the working groups because we're making decisions, or not necessarily decisions, but plans to look at things or move forward. But then it gets kind of stalled because I don't always know what's going on in them. And so the financial piece of that gets held up, and I think it's getting frustrating for like both sides of things because it's, well, why don't you know about it? Why don't you know about it? Why don't? And I think that if we are wanting to make these most effective, we need to come up with a process that provides the information to the next step. So we as the administration, if we are not on the working group, we do not see the minutes. And so we don't know all of those pieces that are occurring so that we can start planning that next step from our end. And everyone is different in how they communicate and push information out. So I just know there are a lot of big things in what's being discussed right now in each of these groups. And to a degree, it means big money, big people things, there's a lot of pieces to this that touch each one of us around this table. And so we may want to think through how things flow and the processes that go with it. Facilities is the most, to say it's simplistic isn't right because it's not, but it's the most easily determined because it has a bunch of rules to it already preset, but the others don't. And so I think that that's just something that if we could come up, I know that we were pretty similar in how we set goals. If we can do that with that process that goes to the next, as each step needs to be taken, so that those other groups don't gap you into that work procession. Does that make sense?
It does, but I think some of it is, there's a new responsibility for the people that's in the facilities group. So I think as that communication builds, I think it'll be smoother. I think there'll be more communication. I mean, I see exactly what you're talking about. Going back to the educational group as a board, we talked about for the Logos program in Hibbert 2 years ago. And so I think we're struggling now with, how do we make those groups work so they're actually efficient, which is the goal for all of us. Because these groups aren't supposed to be the final decision makers. They're just supposed to be the facilitators of information for the full board and central office. So I hear you, because we share the same frustrations.
All right. 8.03 Finance Working Group. I believe we have not met since last meeting.
Well, we did. We talked about the budget. We did meet.
That was, but we had a board meeting on that.
Oh, we did? Oh, gosh, it feels like it was yesterday.
Great.
Sorry, that's my bad.
I saw you
I
yesterday,
haven't slept
Kara.
much.
All right. So yeah, and I'm guessing we'll probably meet within the next few weeks or a month.
Oh, yeah.
So, Marketing Group, Working Group, Brad, Nicole, John. We have not met either. Baker, do you have anything on the agenda coming up for Marketing Working Group?
7 has some information for us, just recently came up from our yesterday.
Okay. And the banners on around the school look spectacular.
And I wanted to highlight board briefs with Bridget are coming along. So thank you for your work on that.
We're also in the process of unpacking the marketing campaign, if you will, regarding the NIT initiative, expressing to not only our faculty, staff, students, and stakeholders, but all parties, the initiative and goals, extensively expressing the initiatives and goals. We're also going to look at highlighting from each department amongst our cabinet, just the mid-semester synopsis as to where we are, some of the things that have been accomplished, as well as where indeed we will be going, some of the challenges that are still before us. But that too will be coming down the pipe.
8.05 other discussion. Anyone else have anything further?
Just want to highlight, Kristen and I were able to help out at Crestdale today, and great things going on there. It's so fun to be in the classrooms again, now the school's back in session, and just to see everything that's going on. I did want to just put out to the public that volunteers are needed. And volunteers as far as like helping out in the lunchroom, helping out just like reading to kiddos in a small group. So that's something that I know we're obviously looking for employees, yes, but also it can just be a 1 hour a week, you know, if you've got Thursdays available from 11 to noon and can help hand out sporks, that would be great. So just want to say that it was a great experience getting to hang out with Mrs. Eloriaga and the kiddos, and would love to have some people in the community. And I know that's been a question right now, just are we allowed in the schools, you know? And the answer is a resounding yes. We would love to have community members in the schools.
Pending the background check.
Yes. You do have to have a background check, but yes.
I hope I'm not stealing any bell ringer, but I had a great experience last week. The Boston Run is back, and so the semifinals for the Boston Runs were being held at different schools, and we got to go over to see Charles, my daughter ran in it, and the excitement from the kids and the public was really cool to see how many people were there to watch, and just even the kids that were finishing last or dead last in their respective category, the kids were all standing cheering them on, and it was really cool to see that again. Just you forget about the enthusiasm the kids have for the
Two
Boston
of the
Run.
boys that we ran into today in one of the classrooms are competing in the Boston Run, and they were about to explode. They were so excited about it. They were just, yeah, and I'm gonna, you know, and you're gonna, yeah.
How-
What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say how great it would be if more public had come, because it was held at, I don't know, 5:30 in the afternoon and not 10 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Just would be nice to see it held in a place where more people could come and attend.
The only
Be
problem with that
supportive of
is the students will all be there, and that's but I totally understand what you're talking about with the cinema and getting everybody there.
But recently, it's been just after school. It used to be at the fairgrounds after school, and then it used.
This is just the semifinals, not the final.
I think the parents.
So they're doing a little different this year, where each school's having a
Every
semifinal
event you run
and
to
and narrowing it down to either 4 or 5 from each school. So 4 or 5 third grade boys, 4 or 5 third grade girls, 4th grade. And so then they'll come together for the finals, and that one may be after school or in the evening, but so there.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just know in the past, that would be a fun event to attend.
Absolutely.
Can't make it if it's at 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah, but I think the finals is going to, I don't want to speak for them, but I do believe it is going to be after school.
I still long for the fairgrounds days. That was the best venue and the best atmosphere. But even last year, it was at Crestdale, I believe, and it was, you know, just
Well, the middle
cheering.
schools run out at Glen Miller on the old golf course, so I mean, that would be another location as well.
They've done that, and that's been. Fairgrounds is the thing about the fairgrounds was it was like out and back, you could see
Wide
the
open.
kids the entire time. And then they had a mass, 25-yard start, which was also impressive. So I just having that kid.
That's where it was when I ran it.
I thought it would have been in Boston when you ran it.
Okay, moving on to Kristen, you got to be at Fairview as well, so
I did, yeah,
I'd just love to hear about.
A couple times, well, once this week and once last week, they needed some help there in the office, so I was able to see behind the scenes and can really appreciate the office staff that's there and everything that they do, dealing with so many different issues and, teachers and staff and parents and students. I mean, they really are the heart and touch every single part of the school. So I offered a little bit of help. I hope that I was some help. I was able to answer phones and take care of some nursing duties, and it was good. It's wonderful to be at Fairview.
Great.
Thanks.
Anything else? All right, moving on to item 9, preview upcoming meeting and events. Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, our next school board meeting will be here in our boardroom on October 12th of this year. We indeed will continue to highlight all the amazing things that are going on here in Richmond Community Schools, and also address some of the opportunities that we still have to improve on that day.
All right. And item 10, bell ringer and adjourn.
President Weber, trustees, I'm going to ask that our communication coordinator, Mrs. Bridget Hazelbaker, join us to.
Just wait, you guys all spoke about it already. Again, tomorrow will be the Boston Run, 10 o'clock at Crestdale. And the Richmond High School cross country team will be there to bring on our kids and help me with that. I want to thank Harrington Coke also for donating water, and Charles PTO is donating the snacks for the students tomorrow. So again, those are the top 4 students in 3rd grade girls, 3rd grade boys. They're all running tomorrow. So we have 7 schools, the 6 elementary schools in Timber. And then next Tuesday, again, we have October 4th, we have our safari night. It's called Come Roar and Soar with RCS. It'll be at Elstro Plaza from 5 to 7. And we have all of our 8 of our Title I schools. We're having a food table there, the Sheriff's Department, Birds to 5. I mean, there's a list of them. And then we'll have food trucks, and then they'll have a safari show on the main stage. So it's an animal conservation program. And then also G1013 radio station will be broadcasting live. And another bell ringer I just want to give props to over at the high school. We did a grocery giveaway last Thursday, and they helped 126 of our families. So throughout the community. So again, that's Thursday. Richmond High School, our shelves, the students organize all that and take the food out to the cars. And the last one is also Miss Karen Scout. She did a great job. I know she's gonna shake her head, but she did a great job Monday for the services and helping organize all that. She worked, I don't know how many hours over the weekend. She was here nonstop. I don't know how her feet didn't have blisters, but again, just coordinating all that and working with the FOP, Indiana State Police. It was phenomenal. She did just a great job.
We had a lot of custodians and a lot of, Mike Rogan came in, everyone worked all weekend on this. The symphony provided the ability for us to get the grand piano moved. I mean, it truly was a community effort. So our bus drivers provided service, and student transit actually donated all of those services for both days to our city. It was a joint effort. It was not me, because there were a lot of people here over the weekend. And so it really was a spectacular coming together of everyone for a very unfortunate and sad situation. However, we were honored to provide that to our community and to the police department. So.
I think everything looked as it should. You could tell that people put their heart and soul into making it as nice as possible for that family and those people that were there. So it was made you proud to be part of RCS.
Just to conclude, as has been mentioned, kudos to those involved, and just amazing to see it all come together and all the different moving parts and how it all. But also, thank you to those first responders locally, throughout the state, throughout the country, and for a very near and dear first responder that we have sitting amongst us as a Board of Governors who sang the national anthem courageously last week during our football game. So, Officer Stevens, we definitely appreciate you for it, and for Mrs. Scalf and so many others. Just tremendous job.
Meeting adjourned.